Just over a week ago, I made my first short film. And while I'm glad that I put myself through the process after months and months of just talking about it, there are some things that I wish I would have done differently, especially up front. Pre-production, as we call it in the industry. It would have made things easier for all involved and given us a more polished, finished product. And speaking of all involved, my crew consisted of myself, my two actors, Aniston and Marlo. Aniston's a high school senior coming in for her senior pictures, and she's got an idea for an extra shot she wants to do. And Marlo plays the role of Carol, Lacey's mother. Aside from that, I played the role of the photographer myself, and John came down to help us with audio, lighting, and running some cameras for a little bit. And even though I didn't mention this in the intro of the film, this is based on a true story. And I'm sure a lot of my photographer friends can probably relate to this, where something a little awkward or unexpected comes up during the shoot and you've kind of got to find a way to finesse your way through it. So backing it up to pre-production just a little bit, the first place I fell short was not finishing my script. I got so far with it and then I thought maybe I'll just be able to BS my way through it and kind of convey the scenario and what was to be said in a general sense to my actors and let them kind of ad-lib their way through it. And I'm sure you guessed, if I didn't finish the script, I probably also didn't storyboard. And if that's what you're thinking, well, you are right. I did not storyboard anything. And when you don't storyboard, you're setting yourself up for forgetting to get some shots and things like that, and that's exactly what I did. And that first scene with all three of us, that wasn't even supposed to be out in the lobby. That was supposed to have been in a sales room just around the corner. And looking back, I wish I would have kept it there, because when we moved out to the lobby, which I thought would make for a better visual, is more colorful, a lot of light, the problem was there was a lot of light and it was moving in harsh through the window and coming over my shoulder, hitting the floor, bouncing back up, and causing kind of a flat look on Aniston and Marlo. And short of running out and getting things to either diffuse the light or flag the windows or add, negative fill, it just wasn't looking good. But yeah, at the last minute I had this big idea that the lobby would work better because it gave us more space for light stands and angles that we might want to get and that kind of thing. Plus visually, yeah, I thought it would be better. So yeah, lesson learned on that one. My original spot was a smaller room. It was a little bit more closed off, but looking back, I think I would have rather had that room, because while there was a window in there, that window did have curtains. We could have closed it off. We could have, that window was diffused anyway, so we wouldn't have had to been dealing with the angle of light or the quality of light that we were dealing with in the lobby. And we could have dropped one light in with a lantern softbox and lit across the room. Anyway, another lesson learned. And one more note on how a storyboard would have helped me. If you go back and watch it, you'll notice that there's no real transition scene between them walking in and then us all sitting in the lobby. I completely missed getting a shot of me going out to greet them. So to fix that, I just kind of did a cross dissolve and layered some music over top of it, hoping to sell the passage of a few minutes. And now fast forward, we're in the lobby doing the consultation. So another thing that absolutely drove me nuts about that whole thing is just how I was acting during that scene. It's so hard to, try to be running the whole thing, acting in it, and really not knowing how your lines are coming across. It just, when I finally went back and watched myself, I was like, ugh. I really wish that I would have got John to play the role of the photographer. I don't know that he would have been able to stick around the whole time, but I think that would have been a much better option. And I could have stayed behind the camera where I belong, but who knows, maybe a few more of these YouTube videos and I'll be a little bit more comfortable behind the camera. But when it's pointing back at you and you've got people that you know right across from you and you've got to like try to pretend to be, and it's weird because I was just trying to pretend to be myself, as a photographer, and I've already gone through this whole thing with the two of them because I shot Aniston senior pictures, and Marlo, obviously as her mom, was there as we were discussing what we were going to do. So when the camera's pointing at you, though, it makes everything different. And then being a little nitpicky, but that's fine to do, I guess, on some of the camera angles. And I talked to John about this. There are a couple of them where I'm talking to the two of them, but you might only see maybe Aniston over on this side, and then I turn to talk to Marlo, but you don't see any of Marlo out of focus on this side of the frame. Or there's times where I'm talking to them and you don't see either one of them in the frame, or when they're talking to me and they're looking at the camera, but you don't see me in the frame at all, and it just kind of makes a disconnect. And I know that there is terminology for those kind of shots, and I don't know what it is, so excuse me. And then we went handheld for that last shot there in the lobby as we all get up and shake hands and they head out the door. All I had to do was add a little bit of like warp stabilizer to that, and I waved goodbye to them, and that shot was good to go. And then for the scene, the first one upstairs where we transition to the actual day of the shoot after it says 2 weeks later, there's a shot of myself and Aniston walking across the floor toward the dressing room. And on that shot, John was gone at this point, and so now it's just the three of us and all having to kind of share duties. So I had to show Marlo how to hold the camera on the gimbal and how to backpedal, and I think there's a clip of me showing her how to do this. But anyway, that took some time. That took a handful of takes. But on that last one, I was actually pretty impressed at how she tracked with us. In that first couple of takes, I noticed that we were walking a little too fast for Marlo's initial back pedal, and we were just walking right up on her too fast, and we couldn't even get through our whole line without already like invading Marlo's space. So we went back and did that a few times, and I told her, I said, all right, you're gonna have to go a little bit faster, because if we walk too slow, it's not gonna look very natural. So we'll slow down a little, you speed up a little, and then by the time we got to that last one, it looked pretty good. I was happy with it. And then there were a couple of clips where I'm talking to Marlo about Grandma that I thought I could have done a little bit better in. That first shot there that has a little bit of movement, at that point we had to have Aniston hold the camera on a gimbal, and I had told her to feel free to just like do some subtle movements, and I didn't realize it at the time, but there was maybe just a little bit too much movement in there, and it kind of jerks around a little bit. And since there's some bouncing and panning, warp stabilizer just really wasn't doing it, so I just kind of had to find a happy spot that I could live with, and we went from there. And then I could have sold my surprise face a little bit better, where I was like, oh. Yep. It just wasn't good. And then when we came back for the second shot, the follow-up shot in that same little sequence, I took the camera and I locked it down on a tripod instead and tried to pre-focus on Marlo, because again, we don't have anybody to, run a camera for us really and pull focus or anything like that. So I tried to get it to stay locked in there on Marlo, but I think where that scene was so backlit, my camera was having a hard time. It's the Sony a7 III on this one, and it just kept going in and out, and every time I'd step away from the camera, I would notice Marlo was out of focus. So then I think I eventually just locked it into manual focus, found where she looked crisp, and I went over there and we did our line. One other thing that I noticed about that is we went from one shot with a wide angle with Marlo on the right of the frame and me on the left of the frame to a locked off tripod shot where it's I'm using a 70 to 200 on that one, and again it's Marlo on the right, me on the left. So it really doesn't change much, and I think if you're going to make a cut in there, I feel like I should have at least changed up the angle, gone over the shoulder, shot us from the opposite side where Marlo was on the left and I was on the right. I don't really know, but I just didn't love how those two cut together. Even though you can tell I'm wearing the mic because we didn't have a boom operator to be walking around with us, and I just didn't have a good way to hide that mic. Anyhow, even though you can see it on in some of the shots, something happened and it got disconnected, and there was some clips where it's not even recording at all, and you can tell the audio just kind of goes like this, and it's just not good. I tried my best to fix it a little bit in Premiere, but I'm not a sound engineer, so I just did my best. And then on that very final shot where it's over my shoulder, past Aniston, into the picture of Grandma, I really wanted that to have a big closing scene payoff, that just a little bit of a wow factor there. And I was really hoping for a nice, smooth shot past me, looking into Aniston, past Aniston, and into the picture of Grandma. But man, we just could not get that. We couldn't get it. We tried it a handful of times. I know Marlo was getting frustrated with me. I would have just done that scene, or tried to, but I had to be in that shot. Looking back, I wish I would have told Marlo to keep Aniston more central in the frame, which it would have been more likely to lock focus on her until it passed her. But I don't think she was ever really in focus until she had her face cropped out anyway. And then it's just a little bit bouncy there, still getting into Grandma. And it just didn't work out the way that I'd hoped. And then another thing that I could have done to help everybody out is I could have just set the scene up a little bit better. I could have put Grandma's picture in the urn up in the foreground at an angle where Marlo could have just kind of stayed focused on that. We could have done just a stationary shot, even on a tripod, with me and Aniston doing a photo shoot out of focus in the background, while it stayed locked on the shot of Grandma in the urn. Would have made a whole lot more sense. Anyway, it's done. And isn't that the thing that they always say is, if you want to get into filmmaking, just go make something. So that's what we did. It's not perfect by any stretch of the imagination. Nobody's going to win an Oscar, but we did it. But all in all, it took about 12 hours. I shot it in one day, edited it another afternoon, edited it. It got edited in about a few hours. But yeah, about 12 hours went into making a 3-minute short film. And it was a good lesson in cutting corners, when to do it and when not to do it. There were a lot of things that I can take away from it that I'm happy about, and there are a lot of things that I will not make the same mistake again on. But thank you guys for coming here and watching this breakdown of Grandma, and if you haven't yet, go give it a watch. It's going to be, I think, right here.